Hello and welcome to the skating lesson. I'm Jennifer Kirk.
And I'm Dave Lees, and welcome to This and That.
This and that, not this or that. This and that. I know the name now.
Yes. Good job, Jenny Kirk. All right, so Mao Asada's programs were announced this week. She's going to be performing to Chopin's Nocturne for her short program and Rachmaninoff Piano Concerto No. 2 for her free skate. Now, she actually used the Nocturne her first season as a senior at the World Championships. So what do you think about this? Good choice? Are the judges going to care?
I think it's interesting that she went back to a program that she's used in the past. I think that's probably a smart choice. It's a program she feels really comfortable with, but not very exciting. And I think what you and I loved so much about her skating last season was that she brought this fire and this happiness, this passion to her skating, particularly in her short program and even in the long program, the Swan Lake, which is so overused. She still brought out her personality, and I feel like both of these music selections, they're a little bit heavy and dry. I mean, the Nocturne is beautiful. It's really lyrical. It's not as heavy, but I don't get kind of Olympic gold medal winning music from either pieces. And when I think about the Rachmaninoff, I also think about Tatiana Tarasova is choreographing her programs, and my mind goes back to Sasha Cohen skating to it. I think it was in 2003. And I don't feel originality. It doesn't really excite me, but I think she's a beautiful skater and she's going to do well no matter what. What are your opinions about the pieces?
I'm much more interested in this short program. I think it was an interesting choice that they did strategically because it was kind of the program where everyone fell in love with Mao as a senior skater, and it was such a beautiful program. She didn't win the short with it at Worlds, but it was such a wonderful program, and I think you look back on it, and that could be an interesting thing to kind of come full circle with Mao, a little nostalgia. Everyone, appreciates Mao. It's probably her last competitive season. That could be a smart move, and to spend perhaps more time in the long program. There are so many wonderful pieces of music that she could use. I love Piano Concerto No. 2. It's been done to death, and we've seen the same music cuts, and I don't know if Tatiana is really going to be bringing anything new to this music at this point. She's been choreographing for decades. It could work for Mao. It doesn't scream to me a Mao Asada program, but neither did what she did at the last Olympics. And that has sort of grown on me over time. I mean, her last Olympic program was a lot. And 4 years later, I'm still breaking it down. And I'm still I think I'm starting to understand it. I'm like, okay, it was a lot. So
how important, though, Dave, do you think, and we kind of talked about it last week, how important is a skater's music choice? Do you think this is make or break between gold at the Olympics and silver? Does it really come down to music?
Someone in Mao's situation, music could actually be extremely important because she's coming in a little bit of a deficit technically, and she needs to excite the judges. That's why the short could be a good choice because it's why everyone fell in love with her. I think the long is really crucial, but she's going to need to deliver technically. At the end of the day, if you don't do your jumps, nothing else really matters. You can put on a powerful piece of music now. You could skate to anything. It doesn't really make as much of a difference. I would just be bored training it every day. But, at the end of it's just,
I think it's a little bit, correct me if I'm wrong, they're fine music choices, not really anything that I don't think is cheering about, but I don't think it's going to make or break her Olympic chances.
No, I think it's going to come down to the triple axel for her and what she can do in terms of a triple and rotating those jumps.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Olympics, this week they showed us photographs of the Olympic medals that will be awarded in Sochi. And according to the medal reflects sun rays reflect snowy mountaintops onto beaches. That's what the medal is supposed to, or the picture on the medal is.
Thoughts? I so get that. Yeah.
Say what opinions, thoughts about the medal.
All right, this is going to sound terrible, but I don't care. I'm not going to win one of these medals. They look fine, whatever. At the end of the day, it's the title that you want. As long as they don't look ridiculous like the medals in Torino where it looked like they had DVDs around their neck, I don't really care. I don't really care about the opening ceremonies either. I don't want to sit for 3.5 hours and have to watch Mary Poppins come down from the sky again, or a scroll unfold like they did during the Beijing Olympics when I was watching on CCTV, had no idea what was going on, and it was just...
I thought the Beijing Open ceremonies were awesome, though. China knows how to put
the beginning of the opening ceremonies, but when you don't know what's going on, it's kind of...
Right, 3 hours later. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of confused with the medal, the doily at the top. There's kind of a little doodle. I'm pretty, but Yeah, again, I don't think the medal, what it looks like, itself counts as much as what it means. Well, we also found out this week that Tanith Belbin, Benjamin Agosto are going to be coming back to performing. They've taken a couple years off. At the end of August, they'll be skating in Shizuoka and Friends on ice in Japan. They live in separate cities. What do you think about them coming back? Are you looking forward to it?
I loved their skating, and I think that they probably deserved to win the bronze medal at the last Olympics. They probably deserved to be world champions the year before. There were times that they won medals where maybe, they got gifts. It all comes out in the wash. I'm excited to see them return. I love Tanith as a commentator. I think once she has more years of experience and her boyfriend retires, she'll be even better because she'll have that distance. I could see Tanith on Good Morning America. I could see her as a sideline reporter. But I have to say, I'm really just kind of meh about their return to skating because if they're going to live in different cities, I have an issue with your entire skating generation as a whole and everyone. I think that they're almost like an entitled generation. And it's not Tanith and Ben specifically, but the last time they skated on Stars on Ice, they were living in different cities. And it didn't look like their programs were trained. And they weren't the only ones on that tour. But at the end of that tour, they were doing the finale, and it was glaringly obvious at the end of the season that they didn't really know the finale number. It wasn't in unison, and they've been doing the same choreography on Stars on Ice for 25 years, and they had not a clue. They just didn't look like they cared, and I think it's such a problem when you watch some of these programs on, you see Barry Manilow on ice on the weekend, which is another issue, the fact that skating's being presented like that. But you see skaters like Sasha Cohen or Sarah Hughes doing programs without jumps, and you see Tanith and Ben skating together, not living in the same city. Skating's kind of in the crapper, especially in the U.S., and it seems to be a real problem, especially with the American skaters, that they think that they can just phone it in and get the same money that they got before. And to me, I think that that's a huge problem.
Well, I think it's not so much, and this is just my opinion, not so much entitlement as it is there isn't that excitement around skating anymore. It's not like it was in the mid-90s when my generation was starting to get really involved in the sport. So just from my own experience, when someone calls you up and says, oh, it's okay, just do a couple doubles, you're going to get a paycheck anyway, I think it's understandable that some skaters would say, well, why put my body through it if not a lot of people are going to watch this? Not a lot of people. It's really disheartening as an athlete or a performer to go out and to skate in these arenas where maybe 25, 30% of the seats are filled. That said, I think it's your integrity to go out and to do jumps and to kind of give more of a performance, but each athlete is unique in what they think is a good performance. To some, it's being able to go out and do a triple. Others, it's just going out and connecting with the audience.
But let's be honest. I mean, you've seen Sasha Cohen skate on TV. You see it in person. There's not the energy. There's not the speed. She doesn't really do choreography. She just kind of does her spirals and whatnot. And it's kind of, I think that, the generation before the boom, skating was at a certain level and they were doing tours and they were making money. And you look at someone like Kristi Yamaguchi or Kurt Browning or Katya Gordieva, and they've kept up their technical level. Kurt Browning is still the highlight skater on any tour that he's on because he does it with integrity. And if you want to keep your career going, you have to do the same thing. Otherwise...
But that's what I'm talking about. It's the personal... Yeah. It comes down to that person, that Kurt Browning is just knowing him. He's the kind of person, anything he gives, he has his own standards. Sasha, just even being on tour with her, not to say that she doesn't have that integrity, but it's not as important to her to go out and to do triple jumps or to push herself technically in that way as it is to skate a performance where there aren't mistakes. She's just getting to know her a little bit. She's somebody who doesn't like to make mistakes. It's real. It's like, understandably, it's a thing for her. And other people have different ways that they judge themselves. But I don't think I wouldn't blanket our entire generation as entitled. But I understand what you're saying.
Tim said to me, could you tell that I didn't care about the choreography in my programs? Because I didn't on tour. And it's like, well, you probably didn't deserve as big of a paycheck as you were getting because no one is paying you for your choreography, Tim, and you weren't doing quads on tour. So it's the kind of, you deserve those half-empty arenas. The people before worked really hard. Kristi Yamaguchi was doing triple Lutzes at 30 years old. And the next generation thought that they could kind of ride on their coattails because they started at the Four Seasons and they get to the Marriott Well, you might deserve the merit.
Are you blaming my generation for the decline in skating viewership? That it's our fault that...
Well, I think it's interesting is that they got really into the fame from skating and they lost sight of the fact that what they did on the ice was it made them successful in the first place. Like Johnny Weir after the last Olympics. It's fantastic that you're into Lady Gaga and that you're at the Academy Awards. But when we see you a month after the Olympics and you're struggling to get that triple toe around and your management team is white knuckling it, I think that that's a huge problem. You're famous for skating in the first place and don't get it twisted. You know?
I agree. And I understand. And I think it's not so much just relegated to skating. I think it's you're my generation in general. We are so focused on fame. We need to be famous that instant, like you need people to be interested in you, and Facebook plays into that. I mean, it's a whole nother subject, but I think what I'm saying is it's not an entire generation. It's just certain people have different priorities. Yeah. Someone like Evan, I don't think he's so fame hungry as he is coming back and doing this season because it's a personal thing that for him, he wants to go out and do really well. And I think that just speaks to who he is. But other people may have different priorities.
Yeah, I think it might be a specific group of people because you look at the Canadians and, you know, Joanie Rochette does a very good job on tour. Jeff Buttle is paid to skate all over the world and he's kept it up. Stéphane Lambiel is paid a lot of money to skate all over the world and I think that they deserve it. But I think that the skaters of the North America have kind of, especially in the US, have disappeared a bit and they haven't put the effort in to sustain it. So I kind of... I feel strange about getting too excited about someone coming back when they're a dance team and they don't live in the same city. Tanith is pretty, Ben's a great skater, and I think that's where it kind of ends.
Yeah, so, it'll be fun to see them back on the ice regardless.
Yeah. So speaking of ice shows, Dennis Ten just had a huge show in Kazakhstan. He's coming off kind of a one-hit wonder performance at the World Championships where he finally did do it. And he's been around for a long time. It's not like he just came out of nowhere. But now all of a sudden he has to deal with being a huge deal in Kazakhstan. Do you think that'll affect his mental preparation for next season?
I think it will either help or hinder him. And we don't know him well enough to know either way. I mean, you talk about him being a one-hit wonder, and basically all we know of his career is struggles. When his coach was on our show, he said that it had a lot to do with boot problems, injuries. So if he has that under control, I expect him to do well this season. I'm just really interested to see how he does handle the pressure. I think it's great that he's bringing awareness to the sport to another country, but it's too early for me to tell. I don't know enough about him. Do you think that this is putting too much pressure on him? What are your feelings about his season?
I think it's the defining moment in his career right now. And you saw it, and you saw the show did so well. And I think it's either going to give him strength and confidence and give him that extra motivation for this year, or it could scare him to death. And I think that it's just going to be really interesting to see which personality comes out training with Evan Lysacek every day. It is the defining summer of his life. And I think whatever happens for the rest of his life, a lot of it could depend on what he does this summer and what he does at the Olympic Games.
Yeah, I think if I were in his position, you kind of want to feed off of the fact that you got second at Worlds and many people thought that you were going to win, and then Evan's coming back. Use that to make you kind of mad and hungry and say, hey, I want, no, I am the front runner. I am number one. And these people coming back and kind of stealing the spotlight from you. I don't get that that's really his personality. He seems like he's more focused, introverted, which is great, but I don't want to see any of this, like you talk about the extra stuff, getting to him, getting into his head and kind of wavering his confidence at all.
Yeah, and I think that he's, obviously a little bit older. I think we saw with some of your, contemporaries, especially in the baby ballerina generation, someone would win a silver medal at nationals and then everything would go to their head because they were 12 or 13 years old. And it would be a lot of pressure and their life would change and they didn't know how to handle it. He's a little bit older. He's got a great coach in Frank Carroll. I think, he's got a good shot at running with this, but he will have to make an adjustment and it will impact it. Now, speaking of important summers, it's now been announced officially that Didier Gaige forced Natalie Pechelot and Fabienne Borzat to switch from Pasquale Carmelengo to Igor Spielbond. And I think that this is so interesting because everyone was kind of whispering, well, it's because Igor has political pull. And we know that DDA is not above politics. And everyone says DDA is going to be the next president of the ISU. And he has a reputation for inventing stories about Surya Bonali and being a little bit shady. This sounds a little bit openly shady. I love the fact that Pasquale Carmelango just put it out there that they didn't want to change. DDA did this. And it's skating. I kind of love it at the same time.
No, I like that they owned it, that they said, hey, he made us do this and this is why it's happening, and that he had no apologies for it. And I think particularly in ice dancing where it's so political, you have to do what you're going to do to get ahead. And I think at the end of the day, it is a good choice for them. They needed a change. And how do you feel about them coming out and being so public with it? Because we rarely see in skating such transparency. Do you think
I'm
it
all
was a
about
good thing?
it. I love it. I love that they said it. But at the end of the day, I think what's most interesting is that they're going to Igor Spielband, and they didn't have Igor do their programs. They got their programs done in France. He's obviously going to tweak them. Whenever you have a Russian work on programs that are done with someone else, they're always going to change everything anyway. But I think that it's just so interesting that you're going to Igor Spielband, use him for his choreography. Isn't that what you're paying him for?
I think they're more paying him for his political pull at this point.
Well, I think that there are people in skating who want to pretend that that's not what really is going on here. You know, I mean, we talked a little bit about this with PJ Kwong, and she's like, well, I think that the Russians are moving up for the bronze medal for their merits. And I was like, right, PJ. Yeah. And I think at the end of the day, Pichlat and Borza are moving to Igor and to have him not do their programs because of his choreography. Yeah, yes, absolutely. So God bless the skating world, and I love it. But talking about that love for skating, Jenny Kirk, Midori Ito competed at the ISU Adult International competition in Oberstdorf. What did you think? Will we see you out there soon? What is going on?
First of all, what is this competition? Because I was trying to figure it out. Because you're the adult connoisseur.
Adult world. It's basically adult world. They can have junior worlds, world junior championships, changes year to year. Who cares? End of the day, it's the biggest competition internationally for adult skaters. It's held annually in Oberstdorf. And Midori Ito's double axel is as big as it was when she was in 1992. Midori is one of those people. It's hilarious, but nothing has changed since we first saw her on the ice. She's fantastic. She has a great smile. There's something about her that you just love. And at the end of the day, the artistry is... I mean, nothing has changed. It's all about the jumps. So,
but it's great to see that she loves it. She loves performing. She's going out there. And I think the biggest thing is that with skating, there's always a way for you to stay connected with this in the sport. Tiffany talked about it, that once it's in your blood, it's hard to escape. Double axel was huge. But again, it is like the same skating that we saw when she was performing in amateur ranks, where the jumps are what kind of draws you in, and everything else you just think, oh, that spiral could be a little bit higher, that spin fast. I mean, I feel bad critiquing her because I love what she's doing coming back, but it is true that...
I think that adult skating is so hilarious in general, is that they use like the IJS for programs that have like double flips, and it's like really, and there are skaters who take it very seriously, and they'll be like, I had a level 2 spin, I had a level 3 spin, like that's great, but you know, the program looked like... And at the end of the day, it's because they try to be so serious and so legitimate with adult skating. Midori Ito actually lost this competition one year because someone else had a more IJS-specific program than her. Midori Ito lost. She out-jumped the field,
But here's the thing. If we're going to talk about that, you have junior worlds, you have senior worlds, shouldn't the same rules apply? I feel like if you're going to go with IJS, you can't just say Midori Ito's competing and so she's going to win automatically because she does a double axel. I think you do have to
I think when you watch
adhere to the rules.
There was a little bit of a difference, and it came down to spins and technicalities. But at the end of the day, I think it's if you think that skating's about the performance or if it's about...
Well, that's the big debate with everything.
Yeah.
Regardless. So one of the things that we are going to start to do is interview a few gymnasts coming up. We're going to start talk about gymnastics. So let's, at the end of this, this is Dave's wheelhouse, some gymnastics news to talk about.
Yeah, McKayla Maroney actually returned to the training camp. She is, Kyla Ross of the Fierce Five has always been training. She did a few stops on tour on her coast, and then she went right back into the gym, wanted to keep competing internationally. The rest of the ones enjoyed the ride, enjoyed the fame, and I think we see continually they're trying to get back in the gym. They all, wanted to be at nationals this year, but McKayla Maroney is the first one to return to camp. We've seen her taking videos of herself on Keek and on Vibe. I'm not as young as I used to be to try to, whatever. She's taking that picture of herself on Instagram, taking self photos of herself every day. God love her, but she is back in the gym, and it's interesting. How do you think she looks based on the pictures?
I mean, I think you can only tell so much based on a picture. It does seem like she's getting her body back in shape. I think it would be great to see her back on the competitive circuit. She's such a strong vaulter. I'm excited about it. I really liked her. I like her personality, but I think it does look like there is some work to be done in order to get her body back in competitive shape.
Yeah, it was just so funny because there was an article in Gymnastique, and they said, "Oh yeah, McKayla wants to, win gold in the 2013 Worlds, which are at the end of September, beginning of October." I was like, she could get back to the world team. If you squint, you can see that there's still the elite gymnast there. Not in 2013. It's going to take these girls. They've been through it. Marta starved them and worked them within inches of their life to keep them prepubescent for the London Olympics and to win that gold medal. And then you go on tour and your body changes and you grow up overnight. And it's going to take longer than a couple of months back in the gym to get back in shape.
I guess
and we saw...
Yeah, no, I don't mean to interrupt, but my question is, when we talk about like judging somebody by a picture, I don't know a lot about gymnastics, but how much does that actually play into whether or not she can do the skills? Because I know in skating, you can see a picture of a skater and we can still be 10 pounds overweight and still do the triple jump. So when they talk about her coming back to Worlds, do you think it really comes down a lot to her fitness?
I think that she's fit. Don't get me wrong. I think that McKayla Maroney is in shape and fit. And she could compete in NCAA gymnastics right now, and she could do very well there. But the elite gymnastics world has become so intense and so crazy what you have to put your body through. And to do that Aminar vault that she's so famous for doing, you have to be in unreal shape. And when you have a big break, I think we've seen it with so many comebacks with Shawn Johnson, with Nastia, you really need that extra lag time. I don't think you're just going to take months off and come right back in the gym and it's going to be like that. You really need probably 6 to 8 months of getting your body back in shape, and then you can come back to competition. It just seems like we saw with Jordan Weber on Gymnastique, they have all these videos of her up, and they spent a lot of time and weeks between each video making Jordan into this comeback hero for the last Olympics, and now we find out that she's not coming back this summer. So it takes a lot of time. It's, they probably all want to be as good as they were at the last Olympic Games. They don't want to come back and be struggling. So I think they're going to we've seen Gabby Douglas back in the gym, but she has made it known she's not competing until 2014. I think that's smart. I think that it's going to take a long time for these girls to get back to where they were.
I do too. And I think after something so explosive like winning a gold medal at the Olympic Games, you need to come down a bit, even if gymnastics is what you know and going back into the gym. You need, I think, to give yourself a year, give yourself 6 months to just ride that wave, to don't get too into normal life and away from, training and keeping your body up. But yeah, you need some downtime or else you just mentally, I would imagine it would be very difficult.
I think it's great for the sport. One of the things that skating has going for it is that we've seen Mao Asada competing since 2004, 2005. We know her. We feel like we know Mao. We feel like we know Una Kim. And I think in gymnastics, the careers, especially in the U.S., are so short. So if these girls can come back into competition, I think that they will still be getting the attention that they got before, because now the papers have a reason to care about gymnastics, because McKayla Maroney competing again is a story. She lost the, vault title. If she comes back to Worlds next year, wins again, that's a reason for the New York Times to cover it. If Jordan Weber, after her disappointing Olympics, individually comes back, does well individually again, that's a reason to care. I think this could be really good for the sport of gymnastics.
I agree. Well, we will be back next week with a pair of interviews and also a new this and that. As always, leave us your comments, your thoughts on anything that we discussed here. We love to read what you guys are thinking. Let's keep that discussion going. And we'd like to thank Kevin Kwasniewski for our graphics.
And as always, we'd like to remind you to get in touch with your inner Nancy Kerrigan, hold an edge, and look
sexy. Bye, guys.
Bye.